a special weekend edition of Best Available Podcast. This is episode 26. We're recording on a Friday night. I don't know if we've ever recorded on a Friday night before. This is new territory for us, but we needed to get out our Super Bowl preview. And yes, we can say Super Bowl. We're bad boys. We don't care about the cease and desist letter we're going to get. But this is an intriguing matchup today, Matt. Or not today, this weekend, I should say. This weekend, the weekend is performing. How about that? Okay, let's be serious now. On a scale of 1 to 10, Matt, we've had some pretty exciting Super Bowls over the past several years, but on a scale of 1 to 10, where does this Super Bowl rank for you among intrigue level?
I'll say like a 9, right? And
Ooh.
I'm gonna exclude all the ones the Patriots were in. So in games that they didn't play in, I would say this one ranks towards the top. And I think it ranks up there with. And I don't know where the Seattle-Denver game ended up for you, Ryan, but going into that Russell Wilson versus Peyton Manning matchup, that was something I was really excited for and was really disappointed with the outcome of. But this one, I think we're not going to get that same kind of result. So it's at like a 9 with all the storylines, former quarterback of mine going into it against another guy that I like in Patrick Mahomes. So I'm really excited for it.
I'm looking at the recent Super Bowls, and I'm going to do the same thing as you. I'm not counting the one that the Eagles are in, but I think the last time I was this excited for a Super Bowl matchup was probably the Baltimore-San Francisco one, the Harbaugh Brothers Bowl, and that was in 2013. So that was a long time ago. And that's not to say that the other games didn't have some intrigue, but this one just has a bunch of clashing storylines, a bunch of great things that we're going to talk about that makes it so exciting. So let's run right into it. So I think one of the biggest storylines, Matt, there hasn't been a repeat Super Bowl winner since the Patriots did it back in 2004 and 2005 when they defeated the Panthers and then defeated the Eagles, and that was it. That was the last time. So we were 8 years old, basically, the last time that happened. It's pretty rare. It's only happened a handful of times in the history of the Super Bowl, but the Chiefs have an opportunity to add their name to that list. So I'm not going to ask you if you think they can do it, but how do they accomplish that feat? Because it's tough. People think that this is just going to be a cakewalk for the Chiefs. I see a lot of people picking the Chiefs, a lot of people not giving the Buccaneers a chance. But it's not that simple. It's very hard. Even if you have the Super Bowl experience, it's very hard to go to the Super Bowl a year later and pick up another W. I mean, look at what Seattle did several years back. They ran the Broncos out of the stadium, out of MetLife. They came back the next year. Everyone thought that, it was going to be a lot of people liked them over the Patriots, and they couldn't go back to back. So give me your thoughts on this possible Chiefs repeat.
Well, I think even if you include, I think the Seattle one was a good example, but if you look at the Patriots with your birds, right, Ryan? I mean, they were going for back-to-back, and Nick Foles happened and everything. So it is really hard, and you say the NFL stands for not for long, and that's really been kind of this whole way of thinking ever since the Patriots repeated, as you said, when we were like 8 years old. I think one thing I will say before I get into this point, Ryan, is that the Chiefs, with this core of people, right, of coaches, players, they will repeat a Super Bowl. This is my bold take, get out there ahead of it. At some point during this era for Kansas City, they will repeat Super Bowls. I'm confident that they will do that at some point, whether it be this year or down the road. I do think it'll happen. They will be a team that does it. I think for this year, Ryan, it's getting out to a fast start. And I saw this, whether it was an article or a tweet, Tom Brady in the Super Bowl does not get off to fast starts. I think out of every Super Bowl he's played, he only had 3 points to show for it, and that might have been the Eagles' Super Bowl a couple years ago. So he historically gets off to a slow start, not only in the Super Bowl, in the playoffs as a whole. So if they're going to go back-to-back, Ryan, I think it starts and ends with that first quarter. If you could get up and build a nice lead, he also showed that not every lead is safe if you go back to 2017. But again, I think that's going to be a key for Kansas City, getting off to a nice start, because historically that's kind of where it leans.
I see. You brought up a good point. This doesn't necessarily have to do with the Super Bowl, but I did want to bring it up. You think that this core that the Chiefs have, they will repeat at some point. I see a lot of people throwing around the word, there we go, dynasty. I see a lot of people claiming that this team is going to be the next Patriots. Matt, we could discuss this for a bit. I think people are really jumping the gun when they're using these comparisons. I mean, you look at the history of any sport, really, not just the NFL. The Patriots are an outlier. Like it's very like I've seen so many teams crowned. Oh, this is going to be the next Patriots. They're going to be another dynasty, and then it doesn't come to fruition. I get that they have one of the best coaches of all time. We'll get to him a little later. I get that they have quite possibly a guy that will be in the conversation for greatest of all time by the time he retires. I get that they have all these skill players and everything that you need to be successful. But to say firmly that this will be the next dynasty, I think people need to pump the brakes a little bit. I think they're a talented team, but they have a long way to go before we start throwing around those kinds of words and those kinds of claims, in my opinion.
No, I agree. And I don't want people to think that take I had of them repeating is me insinuating that they're going to be the next Patriots, because I agree. And this isn't coming as a biased fan take, but what they did for 20 years is it's 20 years, right? And there's examples people are saying, oh, like the Golden State Warriors, they had maybe 5 years, right? And they're still pretty decent now, but they're not like the level of dominance is just completely different compared to what the Patriots had, And Kansas City, they play in some tight games every now and then. People forget that those New England games, I mean, I'd watch them every week. A lot of the times you just sit there and you don't really have to get nervous or on the edge of your seat. So I think there is a gap, like you said, between this Kansas City collection of players and coaches and then the New England, we'll call it the New England machine, basically. So I'll agree with that take as well.
I think people forget if Brady doesn't get injured in 2008, that team doesn't miss the playoffs from 2003 to 2019. That's unheard of. I mean, every team has a couple down years here and there. And I mean, you brought it up. I'm going to say it again. The NFL stands for not for long. Even if these teams look good and you think they can be good for a long time, it rarely ends up that way. So, listen, I love the Chiefs. I love what they've been able to do. The front office structure they have, I think, is great. But eventually, whether it's just regression that you're not expecting, whether it's injuries, whether your coaching staff just gets poached too much, whatever it is, you're going to have another down year at some point. What the Patriots did, I mean, I'm looking at their season by season right here, just the amount of 2, 3, 4 loss seasons they had consecutively is remarkable. Like, that's something we might never see again, the run that they went on. Now, I will say, if any team's going to do it, it might be the Chiefs. But, Matt, this is impressive. I know you haven't started reading that Patriots book yet, but it really goes into a lot about that. That's why it's called the Dynasty. So, it's remarkable. I mean, I'm speechless when you look at what the Patriots are able to do. You can't, like, nobody in their right mind should say, oh, well, this team's definitely going to do this. Like, this is unbelievable what the Patriots are able to do for a span of 2 decades. It's unreal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I got to see all of it. That's why I think, and the difference is, Ryan, with the Patriots, is that everyone was rooting for their demise. And I think it's different because everyone, I think, was rooting for Golden State's demise at some point, too, for a lot of NBA fans. And you can make the case for, like, when Pittsburgh was good in the NHL. And I think we'll get to that point with the Dodgers in baseball at some point. But, like, no one's really rooting against the Chiefs, right? And I think when you start to get to if you're comparing yourself to the Patriots, you have to be, like, that level of, like, hated almost, right? Like, you have to be the enemy. And the Chiefs have so many likable, characters of like Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and like they're just an exciting team. So I don't really want to go that far and compare. If now, Ryan, if they win 2 or 3 Super Bowls in a row, I think we'll throw them into the mix. But it's hard to beat Tom Brady in a Super Bowl. But as you said, if there's any team that's going to do it, it's going to be this one.
Well, speaking of Tom, we need to talk about him. This guy's 43 years old. He just came out earlier in the week and said that he could definitely see himself playing into his mid-40s and maybe even past his mid-40s. The guy he's not human, and I've seen that thing going around where this is almost his third Hall of Fame career that he's on. So like 2001 to 2006, that was a Hall of Famer. 07 to 13, that was a Hall of Famer. Now 2014 to now, it's another Hall of Famer. The guy's had 3 Hall of Fame careers, which is in its own right extremely impressive. But Matt, he doesn't need to win another ring to cement his legacy. He's already the greatest of all time when we talk about the NFL. He has the rings, he has the stats, he has the accolades. But what would a 7th ring do? What would a ring against this offensive juggernaut, the supposed next dynasty, mean when we look back at Brady's legacy?
I mean, as you said, it almost doesn't add anything. That's not a discredit to him. It's just what he was able to accomplish with the Patriots for so long. I think if there's any more Tom Brady haters out there, right? And I think it was one of our people on our content team, might have been Joe Colonna, that tweeted this. If you still hate Tom Brady, it's like if you hate LeBron. Like, you got to stop. Like, you have to just appreciate the greatness, because like these guys are like ridiculous. Like, we're not going to see these people at the top of their game for so long. Like, LeBron is still getting better. Tom Brady still getting better every year. There's not really much of a drop off anymore. And you can make the case that Tom, there really hasn't been much of a regression, and he's kind of revitalized now in warmer weather and all that stuff in Tampa Bay. You know, bittersweet because he's no longer in New England. But I think if he wins this one, Ryan, this eliminates any kind of possible avenue for someone to go in there and try and say that he's not the best quarterback of all time. Like, I don't even know how you can make that argument now, but like this firmly says, like, you can't even say that sentence kind of thing.
He already has more rings than most franchises in professional sports. A 7th ring, you brought up something that's interesting. At age 43, I hate using volume stats most of the time, but 4,600 yards, 40 touchdowns, and the best QBR since his 2016 season when they came back against the Falcons in the Super Bowl. Like that, you're not supposed to be able to do all of this. You're not supposed to be able to do any of this at 35, and he's doing it at 43. He left the only organization he's ever known. He went to Tampa Bay, and he brought this franchise to its first Super Bowl in almost 20 years. As you said, his legacy is already set, but it just, you have... At this point, it's no longer the greatest of all time for the NFL. It's where does he rank among the best athletes of all time at this point, especially if he wins this ring?
Top 5 for sure. Are we going just American athletes, or are we doing global? Because I think that's where you kind of, if you're doing American athletes, he's definitely in the top 5. Like, I think he's up there with like Serena. It's hard for me to pull names off the top of my head, but like he's in there for sure. It's LeBron, another one. I think he's starting to pull ahead of Michael Jordan in a lot of respects in my mind, but that's another podcast for another day. But it's one thing that a lot of people forget too is him and Peyton Manning are like almost the same age. And I know Peyton kind of had a lot of injury issues down the stretch of his career. That's not a fault to him at all, but we consider Peyton Manning to be one of the best quarterbacks to ever play, right? And one of the best in our generation. And Tom, they're basically the same age, and Tom's still going. And I think they asked him at one point, or there's some article about, oh, well, how do you think Peyton feels seeing Tom still out there and still getting better every week? And that just shows how rare it is in the NFL at this position to be effective. I mean, we see teams, Ryan, now like the Jets or other teams that can't find a quarterback and kind of recycle them every 2 to 3 years. And This guy's 43, and I bet if any team in the league had the chance to get him, they would take him. A 43-year-old, Ryan.
So we have Brady on the one side. We have the guy that, for all intents and purposes, is supposed to overtake him as whenever Brady decides to retire on the other side. A lot of people are saying this is Mahomes' only chance to get on a trajectory to put him above Brady. Like if Brady wins this, a lot of people are saying Mahomes has no shot to ever overtake Brady. A lot of people are saying that if he wants to get on this trajectory, not just for ring purposes, although it would be helpful, but just to be the greatest of all time, Mahomes needs this win. This is the most important game he'll ever play. So from that perspective, do you think it's that drastic, or do you think that people might be playing it up a little more than they should?
I think I don't know if Mahomes is gonna ever it's hard to compare him to what Brady's done. Mahomes is still in the first stage of his career, and we just talked about all the stuff Tom's done. I mean, what I think the stat is either playoff wins, win percentage, or Super Bowl win percentage, but he has a higher percentage of one of those two categories than Steph Curry does to make a free throw, I think, or make a 3-point shot. And it's like stuff like that. Like to be able to replicate that is going to take a long time. So I think this is kind of going to be, if he wins this, the passing of the torch. I don't think it's going to be, let's put him on the rocket ship and send him up, the moon to the greatest of all time. Like, here he is, he's going to overtake Brady, because we don't know what the Chiefs are going to look like in 5 years. We don't know what they're going to look like next year. So I don't want to go that far. I agree. I don't want to be that drastic. But if he wins this in Tom Brady's new home stadium, it really can be the symbolic passing of the torch to these younger guys like Mahomes, Herbert, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson. This could kind of be, because Brady's one of the last guys now, right? Assuming Drew Brees is going to retire, Philip Rivers is retired. It's really him and Rodgers are the last two guys standing. And if you want to throw Matt Ryan in that category too, but I don't really consider him part of that. But this is kind of like the symbolic turnover to the newer generation. Unless Brady wins, then that shows that the old guys could still get it.
I'm trying to think, is this the best quarterback matchup we've had in the Super Bowl in a long time? It's got to be,
since
right?
Breeze and Manning.
Yeah. Wow, that was so long ago. Damn.
Yeah. It has to be that. I mean, I couldn't think of anything else, unless you want to throw your guy Nick Foles in there, Ryan. But
no,
I think
that's not the same. I agree. It had to be Breeze and Manning back. That was 2010. Like, it's been a decade since we've had something like this.
And you can make the case for the game. I think it was after that with Rodgers and Big Ben also. Like, I think after that is when you start getting into, like, maybe one guy not being on the same level. Like, you get Joe Flacco in there, I think, at one point. And a couple other guys sneak in. Jared Goff sneaks in a couple years ago. He's in Detroit now. But anyway, I agree. This is definitely the best matchup we've seen in basically a decade.
It's so incredible. So, I mean, I didn't go back to our podcasts where we previewed the NFL back in September. I don't think either of us had Kansas City and Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl. I'm pretty confident. I know I didn't. I don't know if you had Kansas City and Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl. You know who did? Tony Romo had Kansas City and Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl. I remember after their matchup week 12, he said, "You know what, Jim? I think we're going to see these two teams here again on the same field in February." So give credit to Tony. He was right. But, I'm actually going to take a detour on this because CBS is broadcasting the game. It seems like the Romo approval rating is starting to go down a little bit. It seems like people are starting to get tired of him. We were both former broadcasters, not as big as Romo, obviously, but what do you think of Romo? This is now his fourth year. Yeah, his fourth year in the booth. Has your approval rating of him gone up? Has it just stayed the same, or are you starting to get a little annoyed?
No, I mean him and Nance are a solid combination. These AFC teams have the CBS package, so when the Patriots were good, we would get them a lot. We even got them a couple times this year, and the excitement he brings. I think it's something that we need. I think I always will still go. If you ask me for my first choice, it's going to be Joe and Troy every time. But with that being said, Tony brings the most excitement to the table, and I enjoy that. Do I think sometimes he tries to predict the plays too much, and if he gets them wrong, then he kind of looks stupid? Maybe, but like he's not stupid. He knows what he's talking about, obviously, and I like him. I like the enthusiasm.
I'm excited that he's getting to call another Super Bowl. From what I remember, as a Patriots fan, you can attest the first Super Bowl he got to call was he needed to bring the excitement because that was not a very exciting game. A lot of people said that was one of the worst Super Bowls of all time, but I'm excited that now he'll get to have another chance with hopefully a game that should have a lot of firepower, a lot of fireworks. It should be exciting. I guess it was bound to happen eventually. When a guy is your number one on your number one broadcast pairing, he's going to end up getting haters eventually, but I don't know. I don't understand it. There's some big prominent media members that are starting to turn against him that are becoming Romo haters. I don't understand it.
Who are you going to go get?
Well,
Drew
that's
Brees?
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Like, is Drew Brees really going to be more exciting than Tony Romo in the booth? Like, come on. Like, the only person that I think could make a push would be Peyton Manning, and I don't think he wants to do that. So, I don't get it either.
I don't know if I know this is off topic for the Super Bowl, but it does spark a good discussion. So I've seen the thing that Peyton's done on ESPN Plus, Peyton's Places. I almost think that he's better suited for that. I really don't feel like he would be good in the broadcast booth because his name's brought up a lot. So I'm glad that he brought him up, but it's the same thing with Breeze. I don't think that these guys would be good calling NFL games. It's just I can't see it. I mean, can you see it? Do you think Breeze is going to be good?
I mean, who knows? I mean, a lot of people didn't really think Tony Romo was going to be good, and he turned out to be one of the best. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But if you ask me right now, do I want to watch I guess we'll throw him on. We'll put Breeze on Monday Night Football. Would I want to watch that over Joe and Troy? No. Would I want to watch that over Al and Chris? No. What about Jim and Tony? No. So it doesn't really move the needle that much for me, no matter what network you put him on.
Well, one of the things you're going to hear Tony talk about almost immediately, right after the opening kickoff, is going to be the battle in the trenches, and that's what a lot of big football analysts have talked about for the past 2 weeks. That's one of the major on-field storylines of the game. We're not going to get into offense versus defense, but I did want to talk about this. From the Chiefs' side, they're missing their 2 starting tackles now. You now have Mike Remmers and Andrew Wiley at the tackle positions. If it was any other quarterback, I think it would be a little worrisome. But with Mahomes back there, and then with Reid and Bieniemy designing the offense, you wouldn't know that they're missing. I mean, they weren't missing their 1 starting tackle, but I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. I understand that the Buccaneers have an incredible front 7. You know, you have Vita Vea who's back. Jason Pierre-Paul's had an incredible season. Devin White, Shaq Barrett. Just you can go down the list. They have a lot of great contributors on that side of the football. But Matt, the Buccaneers defense has been very good this season. I don't want to take it away. I just don't. I worry that this is just a different animal than what they faced all season long. I think it's just they're going to let up a couple big plays, and that'll be that.
Well, we said a couple weeks ago when we previewed the championship weekend, they're susceptible to the big play from time to time, but they also can create the big play, create turnovers, whether it be fumbles, interceptions. They have the guys that could go in and do that. Um, you know, when you compare it to an offense like Kansas City, who doesn't really turn the ball over, that's going to be one big thing. When you talk about defensively, can you put pressure on Mahomes? Obviously, he had that toe injury a couple weeks ago. If this game was played when they played Cleveland, Ryan, or when they played Buffalo, I think this storyline would be a lot more pumped up too. But with Mahomes having those 2 weeks to kind of rest up, it's going to be a little bit easier for Chiefs fans to rest knowing that he's not running around basically on one foot. But yeah, you look up and down their front seven, Ryan. It's like an all-star team over the past 5 years. Like you even put like Sue in there, and Sue's played well. JP Pay. I mean, like just some of the names on there. It's like these guys have been around for a while, and there's a lot of experience. And then a nice mix of youth, right? I mean, Devin White, a Michigan guy like Tom Brady. They're just really good. I think I mentioned it in our preview that we did, the article previews with the NFC South, that their defense was going to be an X factor. But I think they could force some turnovers. I do. But they will give up big plays. I know that's a generic answer. I just kind of regurgitated your question, Ryan, but you're going to get both. Like you're not going to stop Patrick Mahomes. Like it's just not going to happen. But you could turn him over.
Well, and you know that they're going to be aggressive. Todd Bowles has blitzed a lot this season. Their blitz rate is 39%. That's fifth in the entire NFL. And I think when you're going up against a team like Kansas City, you do need to blitz, especially now that they are missing their two starting left tackles. I mean, their offensive line, the Chiefs, if you look at it, it's really not impressive. Like when you think about Super Bowl teams, they're usually built in the trenches. They're strong up front on both sides. You think about all pros on the line at multiple positions. The Chiefs, they really don't have that. They have backup left tackles. They have a journeyman guard and Stefan Wisniewski. I don't mean to disrespect these guys. Obviously, they're doing something right because they've been good all year, but the line is a weakness for the Chiefs. So if the Buccaneers are going to do anything in this game, they're going to need to be aggressive on defense. They're going to need to blitz. I would personally say they're going to need to blitz more than 5, especially with the line the way that it is. And if they do that, then as you said, maybe they can get a big play. Maybe they can get a strip sack. Maybe they can force an errant pass that's intercepted or whatever. But they are going to need to be aggressive. They are going to need to blitz. But let me ask you this. I told you what their blitz rate was. I said that Bowles likes to be aggressive. Would you agree that they need to be aggressive and just do whatever they need to do? Or would you just maybe try to play a little more conservatively?
Yeah, I think you got to be aggressive. I mean, this is Super Bowl. You got to take a risk. Correction time on my part, error. Devin White, LSU, not Michigan. Got him mixed up with somebody else. Got to get out ahead on that. But I think you got to take some risks. It's no time to play conservative. You look at Sean McVay got criticized for playing a little conservative at times in the Super Bowl, I think. Or at least in the playoffs in general, we've seen coaches we've seen conservative play calling. And I know it's not really what we're talking about directly, Ryan, but it's been a storyline this postseason. So I think you got to be aggressive. You got to get after it. If you give up a big play because you're blitzing, whatever. At least you tried.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree 100%. So the Buccaneers will need to be aggressive. We know that Andy Reid will be aggressive. We've already seen it in the playoffs with a backup quarterback. He was very aggressive. We saw it in the Super Bowl last year. Despite the score, he was aggressive. So we need to talk about Andy Reid a little bit. He finally got the ring last year. Everybody knows was with the Eagles for a long period of time, made one Super Bowl, a lot of NFC Championship games, but could never get over that hump. Goes to Kansas City. I think he's something like 97-34 there since he got there in 2013. The record might be a little off, but it's something around there. And now he has a ring and he has a chance to repeat. He's clearly won. Before he even won the ring, he was already one of the better coaches of all time. The ring obviously pushes him up a little bit. Now, I'm not going to get into number rankings, but let's say he wins this game. Let's say he wins this. The Chiefs go back to back. He gets his second ring. Where does that put him among coaches in your mind? Like, I don't, you don't need to give me names or anything, but like, where, like, what echelon, what tier does that put him in if he wins this game?
I would say the very top of tier 2 or the bottom of tier 1. And I think, and mind you, tier 1, in my opinion, is kind of small. Like, it's not big tiers. Listen, we grew up in the Philly area. Like we say it every podcast. I've always liked Andy Reid. And I think at times, like the Philly fan base is going to be what it is, and they're going to hold you accountable. But at the same time, I mean, I always loved him, and I think he really did great things when he was here in Philly. Like you said, all those NFC Championship appearances, couldn't win the big one, but he got you there. You were still playing in January, and I think that's important. So I think and listen, for whatever reason, Ryan, and I think it's because he's in the shadow of Belichick, right, during this time, he gets overlooked a lot. He's like one of the underappreciated, and I think he's gotten this appreciation because of Patrick Mahomes, but what he was able to do with McNabb, some of those other guys when he was in Philly, I don't think he just gets the credit he deserves ever for whatever reason. And I think this would just put him farther up on the list. But for your original question, tier 2 top or bottom of tier 1?
As you said, he is starting to kind of get that credit now, which I'm happy about because, I mean, I was obviously pretty young for most of Andy Reid's tenure. I mean, his final year there, I was only a sophomore in high school. So even then, though, I could tell that the fan base our fan base never gave him the credit he deserved, much less a lot of people outside of the fan base. And I mean, I get it. Philadelphia's kind of that way with coaches. We hated Charlie Manuel until he was able to, show some success and then win the World Series. And then finally he became one of us. We do it all the time. I understand that. But it's weird that this guy who, for all intents and purposes, I'll say he's changed a lot of aspects of the offensive game. He's responsible for a lot of the things that we see today and that we're going to see for a very long time. He's responsible for a lot of these innovations, not all of them, but when you look at how the league is now compared to how it was 20 years ago, you can see Andy Reid's hands on some of the things that we see on the offensive side of the ball. And I'm glad, number one, that he does have a ring finally. So he finally got that off his back. But let me tell you, if he gets that second ring, I do think he's firmly in tier 1. I still put Belichick ahead of him for obvious reasons, but Andy Reid, he's right there. He's going to be one of the best coaches, and I could be alive for another 80-something years. He's still going to end up being one of the best handful of coaches I'm ever going to see in my lifetime. No doubt about it, 110%.
And I think it's a lot different, and this is no disrespect to coaches that came before we were born. I think it's very difficult to coach in today's NFL. Mm-hmm. And again, I need to state for our older listeners, I'm not discrediting a lot of the guys from the 80s and all those other coaches in the 70s and whatever, but to accomplish what Andy Reid's done in the modern era of football, like it's him and Belichick are the only two guys, and Andy Reid has consistently won pretty much our entire lifetime, right? Outside of a year or two here and there, and it's obviously that puts him as 1A compared to Belichick, but like I really have been a big fan of his, and he's just a likable guy too, right? Because you look at Belichick and he's just like this grumpy old guy who's just out there to like win football games and like find some linebacker out of like, Bemidji State who's going to be the next great guy. But like Andy Reid's like this really kind of likable figure. And remember last year, he was like, oh, I'm going to go get a double cheeseburger after this. So like, it's just like, he's like one of the guys. And that's what I liked about Andy Reid for so long. And that's not taking away from him as a coach either. He's a really good coach, but he's just one of the guys. He's relatable in a lot of ways.
His first year as a head coach, I just want to put this in perspective, was 1999. He's, since then, in 22 years, he's had 5 losing seasons. And I'll go a step further. He's had 3 seasons where he was below 500. And that was 2005, 1999, obviously, and then 2012 is last year with the Eagles. So since he's gotten to Kansas City, I did get the record wrong. It's 91-37. So in 8 years with the Chiefs, he's gone 91-37. Only one of those years did the team not win double-digit games, which is remarkable. It's so hard to do. We were talking about this in our group chat. How hard it is to win even 10 games in a single season, much less the ability he's had with Kansas City to win 11, 12, this year 14 games. One of the all-time greats.
I don't mean to cut you off, but while you have that screen up, the record before he came in, wasn't that when Romeo Crennel was the interim, and didn't they have a really bad record that year?
Yeah,
is that when they got Fisher?
Let me get this open real quick. Yeah, I'm gonna go to the franchise encyclopedia. Fun. Yeah, okay. So, the year before Reid got there, they were 2-14. That was with Crennel. The year before that, they were 7. I mean, take a look we'll go from 2000 to 2012. So that was, from the start of the century. That team before Reid got there, they had 3 seasons when they won 10 games or more. And Reid comes in, he does it 7 of the first 8 years he's with the team. The turnaround has been remarkable. It's nobody could have expected this. People could have said that Reid needed a new place and that he should be able to turn the Chiefs around. Nobody thought he would have done this. Nobody at all. It's incredible.
Well, and then how about when you have a guy in Alex Smith and then you draft Patrick Mahomes and you basically just let him sit the full year and then you just know what you're sitting on. Like, he knew what Mahomes was. And I think, we talk about all the time with Belichick stumbling onto Brady in the 6th round. But Andy Reid getting Mahomes and being able to work with this kind of talent, the fact that he went 15 picks down the road or however many picks it was, Ryan, was kind of remarkable in itself. 10, I don't know what pick he was picked, but regardless, he shouldn't have landed there. And they've been able to kind of develop him for a full year, and I think that's what a lot of quarterbacks don't get. And Mahomes had that year to learn under a nice quarterback, OC, head coach. The legacy's there for Andy Reid. This is another thing. Like, when we talked about, like, those people who are Tom Brady haters, like, if you, for whatever reason, hate Andy Reid, like, you got, like, what's wrong with you? This guy has just been a nice model for the game in a lot of ways and a good representative of coaching. And he's got a lot of Hawaiian shirts, too. He's got a good wardrobe going on.
I only got one. I'm still working on my Andy Reid levels. I'm still pretty low on that totem pole. But do you have any Hawaiian shirts?
I don't. I think there was one when I was younger, but like nothing like Andy Reid style, though.
No. That's the thing I missed the most this year. You'd always have the coaches meeting and they'd all take the picture. Everyone's all dressed real nice, and you see him in the back corner or sitting in the front, just wearing a Hawaiian shirt, pair of shorts. It always just that. I miss that when obviously couldn't do it this year, but yeah, Andy Reid. The guy's really one of his best skills. Guy's really a quarterback whisperer. I mean, you've alluded to it already. He made it work with Donovan McNabb. He made McNabb, whether people want to agree with it or not, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL for a period of time, and another guy that never got the respect he deserved, especially in this city. He didn't save Alex Smith's career, but Alex Smith had the best years of his career in Kansas City after he left San Francisco and then was on the Chiefs. He made Kevin Kolb look good. I know Kolb dealt with injuries, but he still made Kevin Kolb look like really good. He made Nick Foles look good his final year there. He made Nick Foles look good when Foles was with Kansas City in 2016. No matter who his quarterback, Jeff Garcia, AJ Feely, no matter who his quarterback has been, he's Chad Henne. I'm just going to keep naming names. Whoever he's had a quarterback, he's always made it work. That's really difficult. That is difficult to do. No matter the weapons, no matter the guys he had around him, he always put together an excellent game plan for his quarterback to make that guy look as good as he possibly could. That's a difficult skill. There are not many guys at any level that are able to do that, especially the NFL.
Yeah, it's remarkable. And another Super Bowl win, like you said, puts them basically into tier one for the best coaches of all time. And it's funny because you think of him and Belichick as polar opposites, but like we're not going to see coaches like this. I don't think like they're rare to come across, and we've had these two. We've seen Belichick for 20 years, and I think we're going to see a lot of Andy Reid over the next at least 5 years. Maybe not, as we mentioned earlier, as dominant as Belichick was, but we're gonna see a lot of Andy Reid on TV in January and February.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. So we've talked about a lot so far. There are a couple more storylines that we want to get to. The one, it doesn't seem as important this. Well, it doesn't seem as important, but it is also kind of important. For the first time ever, a team is going to be playing at home in the Super Bowl. It's a shame that it had to happen this year. It would have been really cool to see what might have happened if the place was allowed to be filled with a bunch of fans and what this week would have been like. Radio Row, the restaurants, everything. That all would have been really neat. As it is, there's going to be, I think, 22,000 fans that will be at Raymond James Stadium. Some of those, a percentage, will be vaccinated healthcare workers and frontline responders, and then the other ones, I guess, just whoever. So, Matt, I said that from that aspect, it's not as important, but the Chiefs, normally the visiting team would already be in the. Normally, both teams would already be in the city that's hosting the Super Bowl. Kansas City, though, they're not leaving for Tampa Bay, I think, until tomorrow. So, from that aspect, how much of an advantage do you think that gives the Buccaneers, where they've been able to be in Tampa Bay all week? They're going to be in their home stadium. I don't know what the locker room situation is. I forgot to look that up. I don't know if Tampa Bay is going to have their own locker room, but I know some people said that that would not be cool. But do you think that still gives them an advantage with everything that's gone on this year, or do you think that advantage really doesn't mean anything?
I think we've seen in sports as a whole that there is no home field advantage, especially, I mean, even with 22,000 fans, it's not all going to be Buccaneers fans. And I don't think there's a big advantage to them coming in on a Saturday, because remember, they did this same travel itinerary in week 12, and they went into Tampa Bay with all Tampa Bay fans there, and they won. So I don't put too much stock into them coming in tomorrow. It does stink in some ways that the Super Bowl atmosphere won't be there like we've seen in past years. We could have got bapped down on Radio Row, right? We could be sitting down there with the rest of the crews, use all of the travel budget. But I don't put too much stock into that stuff this year in any sport. In college basketball, that might be the one that we're kind of clinging to depending on what state you're in. But for the most part, there is no home field advantage, not even in the Super Bowl, this year at least.
So I'll be a devil's advocate here real quick. I mean, all athletes, obviously, but NFL players are creatures of habit. And the fact that Tampa Bay hasn't had to change anything about their itinerary or travel plans, they've just been able to do everything normally ahead of the biggest game of the season. Maybe, I'm going to circle back a little bit. You mentioned how Tom kind of starts slow in Super Bowls. Maybe this will be the year he starts fast because he's been able to do everything that he normally does this year as a member of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
But Ryan, I'm going to spin zone this right back to you.
Ah, no.
And what you just said of creatures of habit, the same routine, that can almost put you in a little bit of complacency, right? A little bit of sleepwalking, the same routine. You kind of forget you're in the Super Bowl. Just a little spin zone back at you there to play devil's advocate to your devil's advocate.
I was real proud of my argument.
You weren't expecting the double spin zone.
No, I took critical discourse in college. I really thought that I had put together a strong argument that could not be rebutted, and you just bamboozled me with that. Damn. All right. Well,
here I'll I'll walk back the spin zone. We've never had a situation like this, so we don't really know what we're going to, like, we've never had a home Super Bowl before. So I don't think any of us really know what the effects of that are going to be until after Sunday. And like once the players talk about how their preparation, I mean, you're going to get a generic answer from that question regardless, but like their preparation and what being at home meant. But maybe Bruce Arians will give an honest answer of that, or Gronk, depending on if they win or not.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. The other storyline that I thought would be neat to talk about, and it kind of ties into an event or day that happened earlier this week, National Girls and Women in Sports Day. Diversity, especially based on some of the head coach hirings we've seen this cycle, has been such a big talking point with the National Football League. A lot of coaches seem to be getting passed over or not even getting interviews for whatever reason, despite the fact that they're obviously qualified. I know the Eagles took a lot of flack because they hired Sirianni over maybe some other qualified candidates that weren't white. The Buccaneers are the one team that doesn't have to hear about any of that. I mean, we know with the Chiefs and Eric Bieniemy and some of the other coaches that they have, but the Buccaneers especially are they are the most diverse team in the NFL. You have all of Arians' coordinators. Byron Leftwich is the offensive coordinator. Todd Bowles, defensive coordinator. Keith Armstrong, the special teams coach. Harold Goodwin, the assistant head coach, are all black. They have an assistant defensive line coach and Coach Laurie Locust, who I think actually our own Sophia Lewin knows about. Their assistant strength and conditioning coach, I'm really sorry I'm going to mess up this name, Maral Javadafar. I really hope I said that correctly. But I wish, not even to mention Sarah Thomas, the official, is going to be the first woman official ever to work a Super Bowl. She became an official, it says, in 2015, and now 6 years later, she will become an official in the Super Bowl. I wish that you would think it would be easy for more teams to kind of get on this. I don't even want to call it a wave of diversity because that kind of downplays it. Like, there's no reason why in 2021 these coaching staffs should not be more diverse. And yet we're still having this conversation year after year when we see minority coaches get interviewed and then we just immediately write it off as Rooney Rule because we know that they're not going to get the job. All these it's still an old boys club in this sport, which is a shame. So I brought this up because I do want to give credit to Arians for bringing together such a diverse staff. I think he deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, so a couple things to that point. One, I agree. I love what they're doing in Tampa Bay. Sophia mentioned that a couple weeks ago. I'm like, hey, who are you taking in the NFC title game? She's like, oh, I know so many Buccaneers coaches. I'm taking the Bucs. And like we technically know the Bucs coaching staff, if you think about it, by association. Yeah. So technically, we are tight with their coaching staff. But anyway, we could probably dive deeper into the head coaching aspect of it, Ryan, in like an off-season podcast. But I agree with you. I think this offseason, I don't know if we've talked about this or in the group chat, but it was kind of frustrating for me, right? Because, you talk about Bieniemy was probably at the top of the list, that top storyline, and, you see the same thing every year, but it's encouraging when you look at Tampa Bay and see what they're doing. And then you look at, and I remember when Thomas made her debut, right? I mean, it seems not too long ago when she's kind of ascended to the Super Bowl on the referee side. So this offseason was frustrating for that in many ways in terms of just progress, but Tampa Bay is setting a really cool kind of example of like, this is 2021, this is what it should be. And this is what it should always be. It shouldn't be just because of what year we're in now, but like this is what it always should be 5 years ago, 10 years ago, however long in the past, and however long in the future.
No, 100%. As you said, this is something that needs its own episode entirely. This discussion, so we're not going to get into it too much now. I think, as you said, that would be a great thing to talk about in the NFL offseason episode that we'll inevitably do at some point. But Matt, do you have any other storylines that are appealing to you that you can think of that you want to get some airtime here, or do you think that we got all of them pretty much?
I think the one thing, if Tampa Bay wins, Ryan, Blaine Gabbert will be a Super Bowl champion. I think that's something that we need to at least announce once, right? We talk about how Nate Sudfeld is a Super Bowl champion. Blaine Gabbert, right? A guy, Missouri, I want to say he went to school at. I could be wrong. I don't know. Some SEC school, right? Drafted top 10 to the Jaguars, and he's going to be a Super Bowl champion if they win. So, I mean, good for Blaine Gabbert. That's my Super Bowl storyline.
So it's pretty. I'm sure he's a nice guy. Like, I don't want to shit on the guy on the off chance that maybe we get him for an interview at some point. I don't know, but he. I don't know how he's still in the. Now we're definitely not going to get him. Whatever. I don't know how he's still in the league and he has a job. Like, you're telling me there wasn't like better options to be a backup to Tom, a 43-year-old quarterback who maybe this is the year he suddenly falls apart? There wasn't a better option. Like, how did this? He was awful with Jacksonville, and suddenly he's still in the league.
Did you forget that Blaine Gabbert was in the NFL? I mean,
I knew he was in the. I just find it so. I don't get it. I don't get how he's still in the league. It blows my mind. You're telling me they don't, like, come on, man. Like, that's just it. That's what, it doesn't pop my tarts. It just blows my mind that he's still in the league. Like, I thought after his 3-year stint with the Jaguars, I was like, this is it. There's no way anybody takes a chance on this guy. Still in the league. Unbelievable.
Dude, he's been kicking it for a while. He's been around, but I guess it was when I was doing my offseason preview, read some literature that they actually were excited to bring Blaine Gabbert in. I don't know why, but yeah, he could be a Super Bowl champion. So I think that's the biggest storyline, right, that we're not talking about, is that Blaine Gabbert can put himself into the category of like Nate Sudfeld. I think Ryan Mallett got a Super Bowl ring with the Patriots. There's a whole lineage of backup quarterbacks for New England that ended up sneaking in with a Super Bowl ring. Brian Hoyer, I think, is a multi-ring holder. So Blaine Gabbert's going to enter that all-time team of bad backup quarterbacks.
All right, Matt. This is a surprise that I wasn't. I thought about doing while we were recording. We're not going to do Big Four sports trivia, as much as I know you love those questions. But The Athletic put out a Super Bowl 2021 quiz. I don't know if you saw this. And I thought it would be fun to do that. So I did it earlier today. I will reveal my score at the end. But I thought this would be fun. I'll tell you, you're probably not going to get all the questions. Although if you do, that's cool. There's 20 of them. We're just going to go through them. So here we go. What was the score when the Chiefs beat the Buccaneers earlier this season? Dave, would you like multiple choice options? I'll give them. So 35-24, 28-17, 24-21, 27-24.
Give me the one with 28, I want to say.
28-17?
Actually, wait. No. What was the... No, 27-24. They made a comeback towards the end, didn't they? I'm going to lock it in.
I can't give you the answer.
I'm locking it in. That's the answer I'm going with, 27-24.
All right, fill in the blank. Super Bowl 55 will be the third, fourth, fifth, or sixth Super Bowl held in Tampa.
I don't even know. Fourth?
You locking it in?
Sure, I don't know the answer to that. And I want to preface this. So I got Mickey Mantle's number wrong. I get it. Okay. I need to go on the record to say I'm not going to get every question right. Okay. So if I say I don't know, that means I genuinely don't know the answer to the question.
Question number 3. Which is the only team to win back-to-back Super Bowls twice? Steelers, 49ers, Patriots, Cowboys.
I feel like I should know this, but I haven't really done one of those quizzes in a long time. Oh, man. Give me the Steelers. I'll lock in the Steelers.
All right. Which team holds the record for most consecutive Super Bowl appearances, appearing in 4 in a row in the early 90s? Vikings, Giants, Packers, Bills.
The Bills.
This is a
I
fun
might go
question.
back on the question before, Ryan. I might change my answer on the question before. I'm not as confident. I'm trying to do the math on the Steelers Super Bowls right now. Actually, you know what? No. Keep it. Keep it.
The
They have
Steelers.
6, I think, or 5. I don't know. I can't remember anymore.
Okay.
Keep it.
We're locking in the Steelers. Where was Super Bowl 55 originally supposed to be played? Inglewood, California, Miami Gardens, Florida, Paradise, Nevada, Glendale, Arizona.
Probably. I think Inglewood. I think they did a little switcheroo with California.
Locking it in for Inglewood.
Sure. I probably got it wrong. I don't care. But just put it in. California.
Who did the Buccaneers beat the last time they played in the Super Bowl?
The Raiders.
I was going to say, I'm not going to give you the answers for that one because 3 of them are NFC teams, so it would have given it away. So you got one right. So there you go. You know you got one right. How many points were the Chiefs trailing in the fourth quarter before beating the 49ers last year in Super Bowl 54? 3, 7, 10, 14.
10.
All right. Which Canadian singer, a 3-time Grammy Award winner, will perform the halftime show? The Weeknd, Justin Bieber, Celine Dion, or Drake?
I don't know, Ryan. This might have to go with Drake on this one.
Locking in Drake.
Now it's The Weeknd. The Weeknd on The Weeknd. That was probably the hardest question of all of them, Ryan.
All right. Well, these ones, the next 2 might be a little more difficult than that one, just a little bit. How many teams currently in the NFL have never appeared in a Super Bowl? 1, 3, 4, 7.
I was actually reading something similar. So Detroit won. Okay, we're testing my memory today. Thinking of bad teams. This is great radio, Ryan. So just Detroit, one of them. I think I'm leaning towards Minnesota, although I don't know if that's one. There's more. There's an AFC team that's like on the tip of my tongue, I think. You know, what were the answers? I'm just going to guess because I don't want to hold up our podcast here.
1, 3, 4, 7.
Give me 4.
Locking in 4. Okay.
I don't want to hold up the podcast. I could probably process of elimination it, but I'm not holding up the show here.
How courteous. Which Super Bowl was the first to officially be called the Super Bowl? Super Bowl 1, 2, 3, or 4?
I feel like this is a trick question. I want to just say Super Bowl 1, but what was the other? It was 1 through 4, right? Those were my 4 options.
Yep.
This is a trick question. I'm not going to get tricked into doing it.
I can't give you an answer.
It would be Super Bowl 1 because that's when they started calling it the Super Bowl.
Are you locking
right?
it in?
Am I like?
You're locking in Super Bowl 1.
No, I have a really weird inclination that it's like, 3 or something, but just Super Bowl 1 because that's when they obviously the Super Bowl.
Locking in Super Bowl 1. Who has won the most Super Bowl MVP awards? This should be a good one for you. Bart Starr, Tom Brady, Terry Bradshaw, Joe Montana.
Tommy.
There he is.
Yeah.
Which was the last team, we talked about this earlier, which was the last team to win the Super Bowl in consecutive seasons?
Oh, I don't know, Ryan. I might have to go with the Detroit Lions.
Andy
Give me the
Reid is the
Patriots.
seventh coach to take two teams to the Super Bowl. Which of the following coaches has not? Mike Holmgren, Dick Vermeil, Don Shula, John Gruden.
Gruden. Wait. Timeout.
Oh,
No, wait. I don't know. I'm not good. So we established I'm not good with baseball history, and to some extent, I'm not good with older football history. You know what? Gruden was my first gut reaction. I'm going with Gruden.
going with Gruden, locking him in. Which quarterback holds the record for the most interceptions thrown in a Super Bowl? Doug Williams, Jake Delhomme, Bob Greasy, Rich Gannon.
Um, give me Doug Williams.
Doug Williams, locking it in. Who was the Chiefs' starting quarterback and the Super Bowl MVP when they beat the Vikings in Super Bowl IV? Len Dawson, Mike Livingston, Tony Adams, Joe Cap.
Well, that debunks my no Vikings in the Super Bowl thing from earlier. Len Dawson's the answer to that question.
Len Dawson. Which teams played in the highest scoring Super Bowl? Cowboys Bills, Super Bowl 27, 49ers Chargers, Super Bowl 29, Buccaneers Raiders, Super Bowl 37, Eagles Patriots, Super Bowl 52.
52. Really good way to conjure up bad memories, Ryan.
All right. Due to social distancing and other pandemic precautions, so we'll see if you were listening earlier, about how many people will attend Super Bowl 55?
20,
12,000, 16,000, 20,000, 22,000.
22,000.
Who was the last non-quarterback to be named Super Bowl MVP? Dexter Jackson, Julian Edelman, Malcolm Smith, Damian Williams.
You said non-quarterback?
Yep.
Edelman.
Tom Brady will become the fourth quarterback to start a Super Bowl for two teams. Who is not one of the other three? Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, Kurt Warner, Craig Morton.
Favre.
Final question. How many teams have played in the Super Bowl since the Buccaneers last made an appearance in Super Bowl 37? 13, 15, 17, 21.
Well, here's some mental math here. The Patriots are going to account for like half of that number. What was the middle number? The middle two?
15, 17.
Give me 15.
Locking in 15. We're going to submit, and we're going to see how many you got right. View score. Matt, you got the same score that I did. I also got 15 out of 20.
Nice.
So the Chiefs did win 27-24 when they played earlier. Fill in the blank. This is one of the runs. Super Bowl 55 will be the fifth Super Bowl held in Tampa. Let's see. You got the one. Steelers won back-to-back Super Bowls twice. Bills made it 4 in a row. It was supposed to be in Inglewood, but construction delays forced the NFL to move the Super Bowl to Tampa and give SoFi Stadium the right to host the game next year. So next year it'll be in Inglewood. The Buccaneers did beat the Raiders in the Super Bowl. They did trail by 10, or the Chiefs trailed by 10 in the Super Bowl last year. And you did say Drake initially, but I will give you the Weeknd, who will be performing. 4 teams, you were correct, have never appeared in a Super Bowl. The first Super Bowl to officially be called the Super Bowl was Super Bowl III. The first 2 Super Bowls were known at the time as the AFL NFL World Championship game.
Unbelievable.
So you did have a hunch, but you decided to stay with Super Bowl I. Tommy has won the most Super Bowl MVP awards. The Patriots were the last team to win consecutive seasons. Gruden has not gone with 2 teams. Rich Gannon was the QB that held the record for most interceptions thrown in a Super Bowl. He threw 5 as the Raiders lost to the Buccaneers. You were correct with Len Dawson. The 49ers and Chargers in Super Bowl 29 was the highest scoring Super Bowl, with the 2 teams combining to score 75 points. I also thought it was the Eagles-Patriots game.
We might have had the most yardage. I think that was what our Super Bowl was.
22,000. You were correct with the fans. Edelman, you were correct. Favre has not gone. to the Super Bowl with 2 teams. How many teams have played in the Super Bowl since the Buccaneers' last main appearance? The answer was 17, and you said 15. So we both got 15 out of 20, which isn't bad. It's a solid number.
Yeah, we did good.
Now, Matt, you had brought up, we have not done a start bench cut on this podcast in a very long time just because we had other segments and other stuff that we wanted to talk about. But you brought up a start bench cut, so not only will I let you introduce the start bench cut, I'll let you go first. So take it away.
So one of the debut start bench cuts was about the big game, all the way back on Monday Morning Quarterback with Glendon Egris, one of the inaugural start bench cuts. We did football foods, I believe. I don't know if this was for the Super Bowl, the big game, or just for football in general. But we did like mozzarella sticks, wings. If Glenn's listening, he might be able to correct me. And nachos, it's when I said nachos were an injury risk. But we're going to do the big game start bench cut of the game itself, the halftime show, or the commercials. Because you get a lot of people, and this isn't a demeaning way. You get a lot of the casual fans or the casual people who are there at the party, right, at the big game party.
Not this year.
I'm ready for... What?
Not this year. Nobody's at a party this year. Maybe next year. Not this year.
Yeah, not to get political or anything, right? I mean...
Whoa.
Not to get political about, not having gatherings. But in any case, in any other year, the people would say, we're here for the commercials, or we're here for the halftime show. Like, Beyonce's performing, or, I don't know, who else? Coldplay, J-Lo. So you get those kind of people, and then you get us who are, like, all enthralled in the game, depending on if it's 2018 or whatever year we're sweating it out. And you get the people who are just there for the commercials, trying to see what Geico comes up with. We were robbed of the State Farm Bowl once again. Really upset about that. We need to get Aaron and Patrick in the Super Bowl, the big game at some point. So I will start the game. I will bench. You know what? I'll bench the commercials and I'll cut the halftime show. I could care less about the halftime show. Depending on who it is. It goes from year to year. It varies. So this one I'm intrigued. Like J-Lo, I was very intrigued by that. Beyonce, we've had some pretty good ones in I'll consider our adult years. So it depends on the year for me, but I will proactively cut the halftime show in my big game start bench cut.
I need to split this up into 2 sub answers. Normally, I'm going to start the game, I'm going to bench the commercials, and I'm going to cut the halftime show. But if Bruce Springsteen is performing at halftime, I'm going to start the halftime show, I'm going to bench the game, and I'm going to cut the commercials. Every year, and you're going to see it again this year if you follow me on Twitter at Ryan Waldis, you're going to see me tweet out not as good as Bruce Springsteen's halftime performance. It's been a yearly tradition for me for 4 years. Every year during the halftime show, I have to make sure people know it wasn't as good as Bruce. I'm going to do it again. So if he's performing the halftime show, I don't care about nothing else. If the Eagles were playing, I don't care. I just need to see the boss live. If anybody else is performing the halftime show, though, that's a great time to get up, use the bathroom, get some snacks, just decompress before the start of the second half. That's my take.
So I guess, and this isn't like a cocky Patriots fan take that I'm about to make here, but...
Oh, boy.
I was for years, it's a habit of being in the Super Bowl, being so enthralled in the game that when you get up at halftime, you just like, why are you smiling? Because...
For years, when they're in the Super Bowl and it's halftime, I forgot this was a yearly occurrence for you. My apologies.
So, like, when you get to the point where it's like halftime and you're so, like, bothered because, like, you're watching it with people and they're all like, ha, Matt, they're losing, ha. So the perfect example of it was 2017 when it was 2021, they were 28-3 or whatever the hell it was at halftime. And I was at one of Nick Halper's friends' house. The guy's dad, big-time Dolphins fan. and they were all talking smack to me the whole time. I literally, I don't know who was performing at halftime this year, Ryan, and you might be able to fact check me. I have no idea who it was
Was
because
that the
I
Katy?
literally,
I'm gonna look. Was that the Katy Perry? No, the Katy Perry was the year before. Let me see.
Ryan, I literally went into the bathroom and hid for 15 minutes. Like, I was so ashamed of myself. And then they went on to win. It was the greatest night of my life. But, yeah, so halftime is usually for wallowing in your self-pity if your team's losing. Like, that's what I made a habit of, like, especially that year. That's what halftime's for most of the time.
It was Lady Gaga.
I couldn't tell you.
I didn't.
Like,
Yeah,
whenever
I
the
didn't know.
Patriots are in the Super Bowl, I would never watch the halftime show because I would go upstairs. I'd go on Twitter to see who's trying to piss me off with like crazy takes or anything. And yeah, so now that it's two teams that aren't New England, what? I remember
Whenever
last
the
year's halftime
Patriots
show
were in the
because
Super Bowl, I know it happened 10 times. It's just you have a lot of experience with this topic. I can tell. Not a lot of other people have experience with this topic.
no, no, Ryan. I prefaced this take by saying this isn't a cocky Patriots take.
You,
But I remember last year's halftime show because the Patriots weren't playing. Like, and this goes for anybody. I don't think anyone whose favorite team is in the big game, you're not gonna remember the halftime show as much because you want to get to the third quarter. At least that's just my view. I don't know. Like when the Eagles played in the Super Bowl, did you care about the halftime show?
I made my yearly tweet about Justin Timberlake not being as good as Bruce Springsteen. It's funny that you bring that up because coincidentally, the next day when we're shooting the triple scoop, you and me ended up on the segment about the halftime show, which I can tell you that both of us didn't care about, and yet we still talked for about 5 minutes about what our thoughts were on the halftime show. So good job by us. I'm going to give us a nice pat on the back virtually for that one. Yeah, Katy Perry was 49, by the way, in case anybody was wondering. In case anybody misses Left Shark and Right Shark, that was that year.
So then 50 was Coldplay, Beyonce,
Yeah.
right? That was that whole. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Not as good as Bruce. Once again, I need to make that clear. Every Super Bowl halftime show since Bruce has not been that good. Bruce put on a heck of a show, and we're never going to get something like it again. It's sad if you think about it.
No, I've
Never
heard
gonna
this
forget
take from you.
Never going to forget the professor that I had at a certain university who said that he thinks Bruce should have just stayed in the bars. It's no.
I think I know who you're talking about too.
I'm
Is
sure
it
you
a
do.
professor, a mutual person that we know? I think I know who you're talking about.
I mean, that was early on. That was one of my first impressions of this professor, and I was like, "Oh, there's no way. There's no way I can take this class anymore." But powered through, and he ended up being a great guy. So, despite that take, we managed to get along. So, God bless. I'm not going to ask you for your predictions because that's an article that'll come out. Hopefully, by the time you're listening to this, it might be out in a little bit. If not, maybe it'll be out on Sunday. It depends when we get some responses. You and me have not put our responses in there yet, so we're still we're thinking about it.
Let's to play it safe. Sunday morning, you will be reading
Okay.
it. Yeah, we still have to collect some picks from people. So Sunday.
Well,
If
that
you want to know
was-
where I'm leaning, Ryan, I'm leaning towards Pat Mahomes in Kansas City.
Well, be sure to check out the article on Sunday. That way you'll see if Matt flip-flops and decides to go with Touchdown Tom. I will leave y'all with this. Never count out Touchdown Tom. That's not me saying I'm picking the Buccaneers. Never count out Touchdown Tom, though. It's the worst mistake you can make. So with that, we will be back again probably on Tuesday. Maybe Monday night, but probably on Tuesday. And you'll get to hear us talk about Touchdown Tom and State Farm Patrick and all the other fun characters you'll get to see on Sunday. We'll talk about the halftime show. We'll talk about a bunch of other stuff. So be prepared. It'll be can't miss episode. But this has been our fun Super Bowl preview. By the way, Trevor Bauer signed with the Dodgers. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you all again next week.